Hi, I'm Mark. This is Mark's Tech Vlogs on YouTube, and today I'm going to bring you guys a review of the Eufy EufyCam Pro 2 2K outdoor camera. Now that name is a bit of a mouthful, but the EufyCam Pro 2 is a 2K video camera that is designed for using as a security camera around your home. It's also a smart camera, which means it connects to your phone. It's also worth saying right at the start of this video that in order to use this camera, you're also going to need the Eufy Homebase 2. Now the Homebase 2 is available separately, but it is also available as part of some of the packages with the camera. Likewise, it's also available with some packages as part of Eufy's doorbell, which I'm also going to review in a few weeks' time. And actually that makes this part of the video a really good time to talk about price, because price varies depending on whether you pick up the camera on its own, the camera with a Homebase, or a pack with a few cameras and a Homebase as well. So the camera on its own retails at £150 and the base on its own is £100. There are quite often offers out there, but in particular if you were to go for a bundle where you have two cameras and a Homebase, that will come in at just £300. I've put a link to a whole variety of the packages below in case you want to check out the different options that there are. And that's a good starting point to this review, just to make sure you guys know that you do need the Homebase too, and that there are a variety of packages out there. I think it's also worth saying that there are really regularly offers on Eufy stuff on Amazon and on Eufy's website. And so make sure you're kind of comparing prices as you go to shop for one of these. But let's talk about some of the spec of this device. So the camera, as you guess from the title, is a 2K camera. As part of that 2K camera, it also has smart image enhancement and also a night mode. That means regardless of the time of day, this camera picks things up pretty clearly. It has two-way audio built in and also has an motion sensor. This really is why it's very much geared towards being a security camera. Now, one of the real selling points is that this camera is wireless, and this makes it really easy to install because you basically just need to attach the bracket to the wall that you want the camera to be on. Now, the concern that comes with wireless security cameras is that actually are they quite easy to steal? And if they're easy to steal, can you lose all of your footage of a person who's just stolen your camera? Now the EufyCam actually has an alarm mode, and that basically means once you've mounted it, you can trigger that on your phone, and if someone does try to steal it, both the camera and your Homebase will make a very loud noise. That's a really good way of it acting as a deterrent in case someone is trying to steal it, and gives you a peace of mind that you're probably going to know about it if someone is trying to. Video also syncs pretty quickly to that Homebase, and so you should still have access to that video even if someone was to successfully make off with it. The EufyCam Pro 2 charges via a micro USB cable, and that port on the back of the device is covered up by a rubber seal just to keep it watertight. Now Eufy claim that it has 1 year's worth of battery, and this is probably the biggest overestimate in all of their stats about this device. It's also the reason I've waited about 6 months before bringing you guys a review. And what I've found with the battery over the last 6 months is that it's lasted roughly 5 of those. Now, this isn't a big deal because you just have to take it down and charge it and then put it back up again. And if the battery lasts 5 months, that's still pretty good for an outside camera, especially with this quality. But there are a whole variety of things that are going to impact on whether your battery lasts a year or 5 months. And essentially, as I go through this video, as I talk about some of the extra features, so how sensitive your motion detection is, whether you have picture notifications, how often you check the video, that kind of thing. All of those things are going to impact on your battery life. And what that means is I suspect if you had a very quiet space you had the camera in and you basically never checked it on your phone and you perhaps had off motion notifications and maybe it only worked at night, you might just about get a year out of it. But if it's something you want on all the time and you want to check those motion notifications, or maybe the space you're monitoring is actually quite busy, then you're definitely not going to get a year out of it. Personally, I'd say my use has been fairly average. It's been used during the summer in our garden, and that means it has picked up more than it will in the winter. And so I'm going to be really interested to see how this next battery cycle goes, and I will eventually put an update down in the comments on that as well. As you probably guessed from me talking about it outside, it is weather resistant, which means it's perfectly fine to have in rainy, stormy conditions, and it's going to be great. And then in terms of area it covers, it has a 140-degree field of view for covering a wide angle. This is particularly good just for making sure the whole area you want to cover is covered. That mount that you use is also adjustable so you can get your angle just right. And then the final thing in terms of specs to talk about is to say that it connects to that Homebase 2 via Wi-Fi. The camera does have some built-in memory, as does the Homebase, and this is used to store the video and send it across, and it uses military-grade encryption. This is a really good way of making sure your video is kept secure when it's being transferred, but also so that you can still access it when you're out of home. And this is probably where one of the biggest differences between things like Amazon's Ring and Blink cameras and the Eufy cameras come in. Because both of the Amazon brand cameras need you to have some kind of subscription to have things like out of home or keep video for a certain period of time, whereas Eufy doesn't. You buy the camera and the home base and you have no subscription at all. This is one of the big selling points for it, especially given the price hike you get once you've got more than one Ring device. So let's talk about the design of the Eufy camera. So the camera has a really nice modern design. It has curved edges and a white and grey back and sides. The front of the camera, where the lens is black, and when it's in night mode you can see those infrared sensors on the front as well. The mount is pretty easy to install, and I think the camera looks pretty good once it's up. It certainly doesn't look as invasive as some of those traditional security cameras. But now we should probably talk about the main part of this review. How well does this camera actually work? Because it's got all the specs and it's got the looks, but if it's no good, then there's no point picking one up. And I'm going to give you guys a spoiler right now and say actually this camera is really good, but let's talk about that more in depth. So essentially, once you've got it set up and configured, the camera only films when it detects motion. And in the Eufy app, you've got some choices about when you get notified by this and how you get notified. And one of the things I really like about this is there's the option to receive a screenshot of the motion it's detected. And if you're an Apple Watch user, this also comes through to your wrist. For me, this is one of the big advantages over kind of things like Ring camera, because having that preview enables you to decide whether you actually need to open it or whether something has just blown around in your garden or if it's a stray cat or something. The camera, as I mentioned in the specs, has two-way audio, and this enables you to communicate with whoever is in your garden who shouldn't be. If I'm honest, the quality of this audio isn't particularly good, and it's basically just good enough to make some noise. You can kind of hear what they say, but it sounds a little bit like those crackly radios in the cages in Lost. However, when it does need to make the alarm noise, it does make that really well and really loudly. But realistically, you're not going to be using this camera to communicate with someone in your garden. You're going to be using this to try and fend someone off if you need to. One of the really nice things about this camera is it's got some AI features. This means you can set it to a mode where it only notifies you if it's a human it detects, rather than picking up kind of stray cats and birds, and we even had a bee fly in front of it the other day. This is a really nice feature for just making sure you are notified about the things that are important and not the things that aren't. And in using this camera for 6 months, I'd say that the video quality, regardless of night or day, is really impressive. I found that it works well in all weather conditions and that all the camera footage is good quality. And of course, the thing that kind of makes this work really well is the Eufy app. And so I'm going to talk a bit more about that app because that tells you a bit more about some of the features of the camera, but also is the thing that really makes this a great product. So when you first open the app, the main screen shows you your devices. And this is where you've got quick access for doing things like viewing video, check-in events, and even snoozing motion or detection if you want to. Now, the amount of video you can view largely depends on how much space is left on your home base too. For me, I've actually still got video from the day I picked this up, and so at the moment I'm hitting about 6 months worth of storage. This is particularly impressive. The second tab in the app lets you view your events, and of course you can download that video or share it if you want to. The security tab is a simple way of setting some different security modes, so things like home and away. And then that final tab, the explore tab, is basically just a way of Eufy promoting their other products. If you dive into the actual settings for the camera, you can toggle a whole variety of settings on or off. You can set motion sensitivity zones if you want to exclude part of the space. You can choose human mode if you just want to know if it's humans around. And you can even set different zones. It's also in these settings you can set a recording quality, you can look at the audio settings, and you can also check out those privacy zones a bit more. And then if you're an Apple user, it's also here you can configure this with Apple's HomeKit. This enables you to view the camera in Apple's Home app and on your watch, and have all of your smart devices in one place. This also works with iCloud Secure Video. And that brings us on nicely to talk about what other services this camera actually connects with, because it is actually compatible with Google Assistant and Amazon's Voice Assistant. Now, I haven't tried it with Google Assistant because I don't use any of their products, but if you want to use it with something like an Echo Show device, you can just ask with the skill to view the camera. It then fires up the camera and you can check out what's going on just from that little screen on your desk if you use one of those. This works well and loads reasonably quickly. Having used a Ring device with the skill before, I'd say it loads at about the same speed. So then, the final thing to say for this review, and I think you know where this is going, is for me to say, well, what's the verdict and should you pick one up? And for me, this is a really good piece of kit and certainly something I'm going to be using for the foreseeable future. And there's really 3 reasons for that. And the first one of those is that it really just works. And I think that's a really important thing to say, because what you want with a piece of smart tech is you want to be able to get it set up and just leave it to do its thing. And this camera does exactly that. It works well, it produces great quality video, and the app just works perfectly. The second thing to say is that unlike Blink and Ring, there are no subscription services, and that's one of the big selling points for this for me. Once you've purchased it, that's it, it's yours, no more money to spend. And then thirdly, the app is just something that's really well thought out. It's really easy to use, it's intuitive, and it basically has all of the features you could possibly want. If I was being really critical, and as someone who reviews tech, I probably should be, there are two things that I'd like to criticise with this camera. The first is that Eufy's battery life claim is massively out. I understand why they might claim a year, and I kind of get that maybe if you had it in a really quiet space and didn't have half the settings on, you might just about get a year out of it. However, for most users, even in reasonably quiet spaces, if you want to use any of those motion detection features and AI and stuff like that, then there's no way you're going to get a year out of this. And actually 4 or 5 months battery life is pretty good, and if their packet had said 4 or 5 months battery life, I'd have still bought it. I just think it's something worth being aware of if you're thinking about buying one of these. And then the second thing to say is that the speaker built in isn't particularly good. Now, I don't think most people are going to be using it to communicate, but it is worth saying that the quality isn't great. All in all, however, this is a really good product, and if you do want an outdoor camera, I'd certainly recommend checking one of these out. If you guys have got any questions, do stick them below and I'll try and answer those. This is tech that I have purchased myself and I'm going to use for the foreseeable future, so I will give you updates as well on how that's going and if anything goes wrong. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like, subscribe to my channel, and I've also put some links below if you want to pick one of these up. They are affiliate links, which means if you do make a purchase, I do get a small cut of that purchase, but that just helps me keep making videos for this channel because this is something I just do in my spare time. I will see you guys again soon.